SBC Media.
Welcome to iGaming Daily, analysing the news from the betting and gaming industry all over the globe. Supported by SBC Summit Barcelona, the industry-leading conference bringing you the future of sports betting and iGaming.
SBC Summit Barcelona is where you can experience the entire global industry coverage under one roof. Join 10,000 industry professionals for 3 days of game-changing conversation and education. Get your tickets now at sbcevents.com.
Good afternoon and welcome to the iGaming Daily on a Friday afternoon, and that only means one thing. We're going to talk a little bit of sport, and we're going to talk some US sports and US sports broadcasting to be specific, because the deals likely to happen, the US sports broadcasting ecosystem sits on the brink of a potential evolution. I'm talking about a reported deal between Disney, ESPN, and the major leagues on the cards. First, to introduce our guest, though, and we got a real star-studded panel, a perfect panel for this particular topic. Charlie, I'll let you introduce yourself first, given you are the man in the know when it comes to all things Americas.
Yeah, hi, I'm Charlie Horner. I'm a senior journalist over at SBC Americas.
Fantastic. And Callum, you're next up, and you covered the story, so introduce yourself. And firstly, I guess just tell us a little bit about this deal that is reportedly on the cusp of taking place and just how big it is.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, hi, I'm Callum Williams, business journalist for Insider Sport. And it's quite a very big story in terms of the US broadcast, the sports US broadcasting landscape. It's just to take it back a little bit. In November 2022, Bob Iger was reinstated back as Disney CEO. Now, Disney are the parent company of ESPN, and they've been looking to overhaul the company's approach to sports broadcasting. Now, the first approach in making the company cost effective was to make a substantial amount of layoffs at ESPN to help free up upwards of $5.5 billion, which was being reported. But since then, CNBC, as they broke news that Iger and ESPN president Jimmy Pitaro held preliminary talks with the NFL, NBA, and MLB to discuss whether the free sports leagues would be interested in becoming minority investors in ESPN. It's quite groundbreaking if the reports of talks were to progress in advance.
Yeah, a good backdrop there on the talks. And Charlie, when this story broke earlier in the week, what is your thoughts on it as a, not just from a betting perspective, but as a sports fan as well?
Well, it's something that we haven't really seen before. It's something that would, like you and Callum alluded to, really shake up the sports broadcasting ecosystem in the US, because these sports leagues all have a variety of media partners. They have deals with the networks for them to distribute it to consumers, of course. So it seems like there would be a little bit of a conflict of interest there if they took a shareholding in ESPN in any way, shape or form. And it could upend the way that US consumers watch sports, ultimately. I mean, I don't know what in terms of the how much of a stake these sports leagues would take in ESPN, but if it's anything substantial, then I can see some of the other media partners of the leagues not being very pleased at all.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I think it would create a lot of backlash from many quarters, and I think from one quarter that it would create backlash is, I know you reluctantly called them consumers, Charlie, and I think they are consumers. I guess what you say is correct. You know, they buy an ESPN subscription, but forgive the cheesiness and the old school traditional fan in me, but I mean, we're not just consumers, right? We're fans as well. It cuts a bit deeper than being just a consumer. It's not like your standard TV show series or retail shopping that you go to. It's something a bit deeper when you're consuming sports. So I think the fans would have a deeper say, and I think there has been fan backlash over this potential deal.
Joe, you've been in this line of business for a long time. I'm sure that you know now that the legacy fans, it's a thing of the past now when it comes to big business. We're talking Disney, we're talking ESPN. We're talking the NFL, NBA. These are huge, massive, multi-billion-dollar companies, and we've seen with other deals that fans are becoming, that they are less of a priority for these leagues. We've seen it in Europe being overturned with the Super League, but over in the US, I'm not entirely sure how much the fans are going to have much power in this.
Just to jump on Charlie's point there, well, I'm an NBA fan myself. I watch the league. I follow the league quite well. And if the NBA, NFL, and the MLB were to join forces in what it's not been official yet, if they're joining forces to set up their own streaming service on ESPN with what has also been reported as minority stakes in ESPN, but from a consumer side of things, it would give the consumer a pretty seamless viewing experience if you were just to go into one platform and watch, your favorite NFL, NBA, and MLB team all on the same platform. I feel like that would bring, such a convenient way of watching the three major sports in the US. But yeah, like you said, on the other hand, Joe and Charlie, it does create a conflict of interest when it comes to the other broadcasters as well out there. You're talking the likes of CBS and NBC, and yeah, that does bring up a very, very obvious question mark.
Yeah, and I think the other thing here is some of the leagues, Charlie, you might be able to speak a little bit more to this, is they've done well to create their own OTT platforms. What would link in with a giant like ESPN in this way, or Disney Plus is obviously massive. What would link in with those brands do for the growth of their own OTT platforms?
That's an interesting question, and it's not something that I would have completely privy information to, because I'm mainly on the betting side of things. But I mean, having an integration with a brand like ESPN, who have millions of followers across the country, can only be a good thing for the sports leagues, right? If they can integrate some of the star talent that ESPN have on their broadcasting roster over onto their OTT platforms, that can only spell good news. And for ESPN, this is their opportunity to streamline their broadcasting, move into streaming, and move away from the loss-making traditional broadcasting model that they've got at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. And Callum, you mentioned you're an NBA fan. I'm not sure how aware you are of the broadcasting situation for the NBA in the States. Obviously, we watch it on Sky Sports in the UK at 4 a.m. or whatever time it's on. But what is the NBA's position in terms of their own OTT platform? And can you see the leagues sort of sidelining their own OTT pursuit to partake in this deal with Disney or ESPN? The money would have to be major, right?
Well, yeah, the interesting thing with the NBA is that the TV rights deal is set to expire by the 24-25 season. Now, the league have just renewed their own CBA contract, which gives more clarity for player contracts and etc. But the TV deal is a big one for the NBA. Currently, they have the TV deal with Disney/ESPN and Warner Bros. Discovery. Now, this reported interest of a combined streaming platform on ESPN would kind of signal the end of Apple and Amazon's reported interest in picking up some NBA games during the next round of negotiations for the league. And I think it's quite indicative of, Apple TV and Amazon Prime being interested in showcasing live sports broadcasting, because that does feel like that is the way, we're heading with sports broadcasting at the minute and over the next decade. So, yeah, in terms of the NBA's position, they are coming up to an important TV rights deal. And whether these talks alongside the NFL and the NBA, MLB progress, it's certainly something to keep an eye on. And it's also interesting to see how much money and how, what is the incentive for the league to join forces with the NFL and the MLB on a streaming platform as grand as this.
Yeah, that's a great point about some of them channels, and well, they're not channels really, they're platforms, I guess. I call them channels, the Amazon Primes and the Disney Pluses of this world. venturing into sports broadcasting a little bit more, I think with that as well comes a different type of, it really fuels the evolution of sports broadcasting. And we don't just get the live broadcast, whatever game it is being played at that time. We get additional content. And Charlie, whilst your head is in America, your heart is very much still in Sunderland. You have seen firsthand just how much that type of content can grow a club's fan base. I would say, obviously, you've got your core fan base, and grow engagement about a club. Sunderland from what I'm talking about for context, is Sunderland Till I Die was a 6-part Netflix series, ran for 2 seasons, I think. It was incredibly engaging. It wasn't a great watch for Sunderland fans at all times, but it really brought a level of awareness about Sunderland to a new audience. How important? I guess my question is, how important is that type of content? How do you think we'll see that type of content grow? And what type of, could this deal impact that type of documentary style, fly on the wall, story-like content?
Well, first of all, just for the growing the fan base thing, Sunderland have just been on a pre-season tour of the US, and they went to San Antonio, Albuquerque and North Carolina, and there was sort of a flood of red and white in each of those cities when they were there. So you can see the impact in that little pre-season tour. But on a more general note, the Sunderland documentary isn't, it's not unique, it's not new. The fly on the wall documentary in sports is massive now. We've seen it with Manchester City, Arsenal, Wrexham. You've seen it with some US sports as well. I think fans are looking to get the insider perspective and really look at those narratives. So I can definitely see more US sports taking up those kinds of documentaries to diversify their audience and provide other sources of entertainment for fans away from the field.
Yeah, and what we've seen from Disney and from Amazon, this deal will only, Disney, and it will only fuel that type of content, I think, for sure. Callum, I wanted to ask you about, I'm going to give Charlie a chance to talk about Sunderland. I'm definitely not going to give you a chance to talk about Manchester City. But I wanted to give you a chance to talk about ESPN because you've covered the layoffs quite a lot. And I wanted to get your thoughts on whether you think this deal is their hand being forced a little bit, whether they've had to make this deal.
It comes with their, like I said before, like their whole overhauling of their approach to sports broadcasting. Now, TV ratings for the NBA and the MLB in particular, those ratings have been going down over the last decade, and this is no surprise considering just how the digital era we're in, the digital evolution that we're in. Just more viewers are going to streaming services, so it is a way of just doubling down almost on sports, live sports on streaming services anywhere, anytime, on your mobile phone, laptop, etc. It's kind of almost doubling down on that. In terms of the layoffs, there was a mass amount of layoffs at ESPN. I know me watching some of their NBA content. I know former analyst Jalen Rose, he was, one of my favorites, listen to Jalen Rose. So he got cut. There was also, even Stephen A. Smith, who's like, everybody knows Stephen A. Smith from ESPN. Even he was saying a couple of months ago that he wasn't exactly safe from losing his job. So they was very, very serious about making these job cuts. And, obviously it's happened now. And yeah, I think I just think it's a part of their current approach right now to sports broadcasting, considering, dwindling TV ratings and, a heavier focus on streaming platforms.
Yeah, that is fascinating. I mean, the digital evolution that you talk about is really interesting because it's not just streaming sites. It's also, I don't want to say it, but we're sort of living in a TikTok generation. And just yesterday, we were talking a little bit about how young people, even films are too long for young people now. They don't want to watch films because it's 2 hours of concentration and that is simply too much. So it's a fascinating discussion for sports like MLB, and I think over here, like Test cricket, the Ashes has done okay, but it's a really interesting discussion about like long form sports, how challenging it is for broadcasters to engage viewers in long form sports and longer activities. I think that aren't sort of rapid and you get the action right away. That's a wider discussion, but something that is really interesting for sure. And somebody who has had an instant impact though, and has really fueled the growth of OTT platforms, and also provided those viral sort of TikTok moments over the years, but he's still doing it, is Lionel Messi. In the US, Charlie, what impact do you think he can have on soccer and the growth of the MLS?
Yeah, I think this is going to be one of the most influential deals that the MLS could ever wish to make. I mean, previously the David Beckham deal looked to be incredible for all parties. I mean, the profile of MLS grew exponentially, and David Beckham made a hell of a lot of money out of, he could essentially buy the Inter Miami franchise rights for $25 million. It's now like $1 billion company or something. So that was an incredible deal. But this Messi deal is also, I mean, just for what he's going to do to the sport I don't think it's quantifiable just yet. I mean, we all saw the viral video of his free kick last week. There was another viral video of his second appearance where he was substituted on 75 minutes, and there was just floods of fans leaving the stadium. So his influence on the game cannot be underestimated.
Wow, I'm not sure what that says about Messi, what that says about the Inter Miami fan base. I don't know if they'll come for me after this, but yeah, not great, I guess. I guess it is good. They're there to see him. They're there to see the greatest player of all time. But yeah, that's an interesting one that they're leaving when he comes off, or maybe just traffic in Miami. If it's anything like traffic at Old Trafford, the people leaving at 77 minutes is not unusual. But Callum, we saw with the somewhere where it has had an impact in terms of the numbers is not just into Miami's league position, but also the MLS season pass on Apple TV.
Yeah. I mean, Messi's debut the other week has kind of, bolstered MLS season pass subscribers to over 1 million now. I mean, it's not really surprising, to be honest. Messi's, arguably one of the most recognizable, figures in the world. So, yeah, I mean, it's massively successful already for Apple TV. And their recent, they're in the first year of a 10-year exclusive rights deal with the MLS, so it's going pretty well at the minute to start off. So Messi's got a 2.5-year deal there at Inter Miami, and he's also somewhere in that contract. It's been reported that he will make a certain percentage of MLS get words out, MLS season pass revenue for every for subscribers. So. If he hasn't got enough money during making his time in Europe, then he's certainly going to be making a lot more in the US, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's quite wild that, isn't it? I mean, they're tapping into sort of innovative sponsorship type deals to bring him over, and they were competing with, the competition was heavy because, yeah, I mean, Saudi Arabia is also a retirement home now for the best players to go to and finish their careers. And I mean, players that aren't even at the end of their career, they're also sort of in their prime, are going over to Saudi Arabia. So I guess they had to get innovative on that front. But it is Football Shirt Friday, so I wanted to ask you guys real quick, because that pink shirt of Inter Miami is quite something to behold. Will you be cutting about Manchester in a pink Inter Miami Messi shirt, or no? It's not for you.
No. I barely buy Manchester City tops, to be honest, Joe. So yeah, definitely not a bright pink top.
I've definitely seen Charlie wearing some flamboyant football shirts at Five-a-Side Football, so I think he might be a dark horse for this one.
No, I do like collecting football shirts, but they're primarily from places that I'm going to visit. Miami's not quite on my list at the moment, but we'll see. Maybe the lure of Messi might drag me in.
There you go. Don't rule it out. Me But the three of us are all going to be cutting about in pink Miami shirts. We're signed up to it. We're all in now. We're all in. But I mentioned it before, the competition that Inter Miami had to bring in Lionel Messi was largely from Saudi Arabia. Yeah, it's been crazy watching the transfer window unfold from a Saudi Arabian front, and just the players that are going over there just really quickly to close. How is this going to play out? Ronaldo predicted that in 5 years, I think in 5 years, there'll be a top 5 league. Is that realistic? It's certainly becoming more realistic as the more players they bring in. I mean, they brought in Jordan Henderson, but yeah, the more players they bring in.
No, I think certainly the profile of the Saudi Pro League is much bigger than it was 12 months ago. But I mean, there's a gap between what the Saudi Pro League can be and what the Premier League and La Liga and the Bundesliga is. I think even high quality leagues like the Portuguese league and the Dutch league are struggling to get the viewing figures and the quality that the other top 5 leagues are making. But it's going to be interesting to see what broadcasting deals that Saudi Arabia can get following, the likes of Ronaldo and co going over there. And that could propel the Saudi Pro League into the stratosphere, really.
I mean, you mentioned as well, Charlie, the leagues outside, the perennial top 5 leagues in Europe. I mean, even the Premier League dwarfs in terms of broadcast deals. They more than double the second highest in the whole of Europe. So my skepticisms with the Saudi Pro League just stem from a lack of if football fans can be bothered to watch it, really. I mean, there's time zone differences there as well. And don't get me wrong, the likes of Ronaldo, Benzema, N'Golo Kante, they've made some really, really good signings that are bound to bolster the league's brand. But I just think football fans in Europe are they kind of just have enough time to watch, their own league and on other leagues across Europe without taking into account the Saudi Pro League, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a really valid point there, Callum. And to give my 2 cents on Saudi Arabia, I think you're right. European football fans need to care, and I just don't know if I envisage a world where we're bothered by who wins the league, whether it's Al Ittihad or Al Nassr. When you're looking at European teams, you sort of care because of the history of PSV and Ajax. In the Dutch league, you're interested. You know the heritage and the rivalry there, and even if the players aren't such superstars, you care about who wins that league and who's going to get into the Champions League. And I think there needs to be. It's hard to buy that type of history and that type of legacy. I don't think you can do it, but I'm sure they'll sign some more players. I'm sure there'll be some more eye-watering figures bandied about this window for some top players moving over there. But the EFL's back next week, and that's where our attention shall turn, I'm sure. But thanks ever so much. Enjoy the Women's World Cup as well. Obviously, a decent win for the Lionesses this morning. Tricky game again, but they rumble on into the knockout stages, and we continue. Thanks ever so much.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of iGaming Daily, brought to you in conjunction with SBC Summit Barcelona, being held at the Fira Barcelona Montjuic on the 19th to the 21st of September. If you want to find out more about some of the subjects raised today, feel free to explore any of the sites in the SBC News Network, or check out the latest edition of the SBC Leaders magazine. Happy reading.